place for everything, so I'm trying to be strong. But I want to introduce y'all to somebody. This guy right here, when I was 6 years old, he molested me in the bed when I was with my cousin Brittany and James and my little brother Isaiah in the bed. You remember that, Lance? Remember when you was touching on me and you went to wash my drawers out? You remember that? When you told me not to tell none of my aunts and you put a quarter in my pocket? You remember what you did? You know you're a registered sex offender online. You know that? You did other little girls the same way you did me. And you over here sitting here eating my family food after you touched on a little girl that was a child. That's what the f you in here doing? There's a time and a place for everything. So I'm paying my respects and I'm allowing you to pay your up respects, even though you never even went to go see my cousin. Right? How you feel about touching on little ass girls? It's free pussy.
Happy New Day, everyone. Thank you for tuning in and watching. I hope everyone is doing well at this particular time. For those that remember the video I did last year on the code behind New Year's, I think that's the name of it. I might have it wrong, I don't know. But some of you all may know that this is a time of transition. We are in the last quarter, and this is all about transition, death, and just completing the cycle. And I definitely have been feeling the energy of hibernation and stillness and just sluggishness and just sitting still. And it's working well for me. My mind is definitely trying to come up with schemes to get me to be active, but it's not happening. I'm surprised I'm doing this video and it's after midnight. But this video, I feel, is very, very important. And there is a woman who I worked with in the past who is sponsoring this video. And I'm very glad that she reached out and asked me to talk about this, because in working with her, we both learned a lot about her design and circumstances that she experienced for many years of her life. And she wanted this information to be put out during this particular time because it is the holiday season. I really wanted to get this video out sooner, but I couldn't. So I mustered up just enough energy to get on here and make something happen. So I took some notes, and I'm going to do my best to deliver this information, and hopefully it will help those of you who watch it and give you all some clarity on situations that you may have experienced or that other people that you know may have experienced. This topic is definitely uncomfortable for a lot of people. It's a topic that I have looked into with many people for several years now, and it's something that I always knew eventually I would talk about, and I feel that this is definitely a beginning to me getting into this topic, because it's so many people who have been affected by this particular realm of abuse. And yeah, so this is about incest, molestation, sexual abuse, within the family. And it's something that we're seeing is coming more and more to the surface. You know, you're hearing celebrities coming forward and talking about being sexually molested or raped by family members. And yeah, it's one of those things that has happened so much within, I'm sure, every single family. Somewhere within a generation, there was some type of sexual activity going on between family members. I've learned in the last year about things happening in my family. I was never, I never experienced any type of incest or any type of sexual abuse by a family member, but I know of many people who have. And it's something that is very damaging to the psyche, to the emotions, to the physical body, to, I mean, it really leaves a huge stain on people and the way that they function as they move forward in life, and the way that they function in their relationships with their own children. You know, it just really, it's created a lot of problems within individuals and within partnerships and within families. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about in regards to this is listening to your children. Like, if you're a parent and you take your children to a family gathering, listen to your children and watch their body language, because I have seen several situations personally to where a parent has pretty much forced their child to hug or physically interact with another family member, or even a person that they know, because it's polite or it's the right thing to do and it's manners and, you know, all of that type of stuff. But the child has shown complete resistance to that individual that their parent is telling them to go hug or, you know, physically touch in some type of way. And in seeing this several times, and even, you know, there have been parents who have forced their children to interact with me, and it has always made me very uncomfortable, because I'm paying attention to the child and I'm seeing that, okay, this child is trying to feel me out, but the parent is like, go over there and give her a hug or go over there and say hi. And I've actually told a few parents, like, hey, you know, let's just see if your child will just eventually like warm up to me and come to me. You know, like, if they choose to do that in their own timing, that will make me more comfortable, because I just have a thing with like invading people's space, even if it's a child. So I've seen how children are with me and with other people, and children stare at me, you know, like they see me and they just like stop and stare. And I'm like, okay, I'm clearly like being scanned right now, but, you know, let me just see what happens. But I'm never one to just walk up and like touch a child or touch a baby. You know, even with babies, I have seen people just walk up to somebody's baby and like pinch their cheeks, or, you know, just be all in the baby's space. And I've even seen babies just kind of like, you know, turn closer to their mother, or, you know, you can tell that they don't really want to be touched by that person. But a lot of parents are oblivious to this body language. And even if the child is physically saying like, no, I don't want to, and then the parent is coming from a place of, don't embarrass me, don't be rude to, your cousin or your uncle or whatever the case may be. And in speaking with the woman who asked me to do this video, I was slightly aware, but in working with her, it became clear of how damaging that is at a deep subconscious level to that baby or that child, because the parent is the protector of the child. The parent knows that, okay, everything for my survival and for me to be taken care of comes from my parent. But I'm feeling something is not right with this individual, but my parent is like handing me over to this person. My parent is forcing me to engage with this person. And as a child, they may not know how to verbalize that or express that. It may just come off as, the child is being moody or, being hard-headed or something like that. But in majority of situations, parents don't know what their children, what type of energies their child has, and how the energy of the individual that they're pushing their child towards, they don't know what that individual has. So they don't know what could be causing resistance, and they're not even really thinking of that because there's just no awareness of any of it. So the parent isn't paying attention to the fact that, the child may feel just energetically overpowered by this uncle or this cousin or whoever, or even like a family friend or something like that. And because a lot of situations that happen within this particular topic, you don't really know off top what adults may have like a sexual fetish or a sexual attraction to children or to specific children or a specific child within a family. Like no one is really thinking about that. So these things aren't really considered. And this, being the holiday season, it's a lot of family gatherings happening. And during these family gatherings, it's important to consider the high levels of stimulation that's taking place, because it's family. People a lot of times haven't seen each other since the last holiday. So there's a lot of hugging. There's a lot of, like it's a very overwhelming and overstimulating environment for the most part. On top of the fact that there's food, there's a lot of food, and majority of the time, very delicious food. People go out their way to make this food more delicious than any other time of the year, because it's the holiday, and it's just different around these times. So some of you all may know, some may not, food and sex go together when it comes to pleasure. The way in which we are stimulated and we find pleasure, food and sex go hand in hand. So when you're taking a whole bunch of bodies, the bodies are not recognizing that this is my family. So you have people of all ages, you have children running around, you have, the teenagers, the adults, the elders, you have all of these different bodies that are not, the bodies aren't operating consciously to where the mind is really recognizing what's going on. The bodies are just like, hey, you know, these are other energetic connections around me. And if I'm stimulated by something, then hey, that's what it is. So most people are just not aware of all of the different things going on underneath any type of interaction, whether it's just two people or whether it's a room full of people. So you have very high stimulation along with food. Children are playing with, you know, their cousins, the other children that they haven't seen. So they're reconnecting, that, you know, they're experimenting and, you know, trying to get as much fun in while they can, you know, while everyone's together, because, you know, it might be another year before we see each other again, or the next holiday or whatever. So there's a lot of energy that's being crammed into the holiday season. And in particular, you know, your Thanksgiving, your Christmas, and your New Year's, those back to back holidays. So another thing to think about is that people change moment to moment. So there are people that get excited about the holidays because they're going to see, you know, their family members from another state who are going to come into town for the holidays. You may not be aware of the changes that have taken place with, for instance, like your favorite aunt or your favorite cousins from Arkansas or Mississippi or something like that. You may not know that the way that you've interacted with them in the previous years, something has happened in their personal life to where they have completely like transformed. They've changed into something different. They think differently now. They've experienced things to where their personalities have changed. Like they're just different. So all you know is, I remember all of these good times that we've had. And you may see that when you reconnect with family members that you haven't really been in contact with, or you haven't been updated throughout the year about them, you may find out that something, you know, really traumatizing happened to them. So now the way that they interact with you is different. The way that they may interact with the children is different. But a lot of times this isn't considered because it's like, well, you know, no, that's my favorite cousin, or that's my, you know, this is my family, this is my blood, you know, like no matter what, you know, we're gonna stick together, you know. And people hold on to the past, not really updating their connections or their relationships with their family members. And many people don't even do this with their friends or with their partners. So that's a huge thing that is missing when it comes to the way in which you interact and engage with any person. That, you know, there's a lack of updating that takes place. And for myself, I just see that more and more. You know, the way that I was thinking and feeling in November, just a month ago, now it's December, and it's like I can think back to things that I was thinking about in November, and it's like, what? You know, like I'm something completely different now. Like I've transitioned to something else. I have a different awareness. So something that I may have done last month, that's over and done with. I probably would never do that again. I would do something different. It's December now. And in January, I may do something different. So there's constant change happening, which is just really not considered. So when it comes to people who have been molested or physically abused or raped by people in their immediate family or even in their distant family, there's a tendency to not speak up on those things right away or sometimes at all because of the programs that deal with, you know, tribal law, families, family first, you know, like that's something that's tossed around a lot. You know, family comes first. Blood is thicker than water. Family looks out for each other, and you know, you have to be loyal to your tribe. And you know, it's many other things that, you know, we hear about that deal with people saying, hey, no matter what, you know, you have to go along with what your family wants. So there are many people who have been in these situations dealing with incest, and they just never said anything because they didn't want to get in trouble. They didn't want to get another family member in trouble. And some people experienced situations so much with family members that it became normal to them. So they got to a point to where they couldn't even recognize it as abuse anymore. So I'm going to pull up the chart of the woman who asked me to do this video and just point out some things that, you know, we were able to recognize within her genetic design and see why the realm of incest was such a big part of her life. Okay. All right. So as you can see, she is a 4/6 manifesting generator, triple split definition, right angle cross of the sleeping phoenix. Now, just those things said a lot before I even looked at, you know, the activations. I did a video, I think it was the beginning of 2016. I can't remember, but it was about a 4/6 manifester, a young man who he was a part of a gang. He had 2 children by 2 women who were cousins. And he was like only 17. Like it was, I did a whole breakdown, but I'm not sure if I mentioned it. I may have, but the 4/6 profile stood out because the 4/6 is naturally a very promiscuous design. And for anyone who is involved in learning human design, I'm sure some of you all have come across the information to where it explains why the 4/6 profile is the most promiscuous out of all 12 profiles. And that's because of the nature of the sexual bonding strategy of the 4-6 profile. And the promiscuity happens within the first 28 years because within the first 28 years, the 4-6 is operating as a 4-3. And I know for some of you all who are unfamiliar with human design, I'm speaking a foreign language right now, but, I'm going to do my best to, make this as simple as possible. But basically, the way in which the sexual bonding strategy operates for the 4-6 within the first 28 years is that they are going to gravitate towards people who are friends, people who are in their network. So, of course, family is naturally going to be a huge thing for the 4-6 profile. And in the first 28 years, they are going through an experimental phase to where there's a lot of bonds made and bonds broken. And that's because the 4-6 has to experiment and has to find out the things that don't work. So there's a tendency for the 4-6 within the first 28 years to have sex or sexual episodes with their friends and also people who are in their network, which does include family members. Now, that's not to say every 4-6 profile will have a sexual encounter with someone in their family, but it's very rare to find a 4-6 who hasn't. Now, it doesn't mean that, it's always something that's a long-term situation, but it's just natural. It's natural for the 4-6 to be sexually stimulated by people who are a part of their network. That's just the way in which the sexual bonding strategy operates, and everyone has a sexual bonding strategy. And this is built into us to ensure that we as a species reproduce. So everybody has a very specific way in which they're designed to open up for the purposes of reproduction. And I have seen a lot of 4-6 children who are in the promiscuous stage of their design. And I mean, it's right there in your face. It's not even that these children are, being exposed to sexual activity. Some of them are, but it's just very natural for them to be sexually stimulated very, very early. I've heard of 4-6 children as early as 2-3 years old who are showing very high levels of sexual stimulation, and they're only around family. So this is not something that is that they are consciously aware of, and it starts early without them having to be provoked by anyone. So it's not like the 4-6 profile will need to be sexually stimulated by somebody in order to feel that. They will feel it naturally because it's just a part of their bonding strategy. So that was the first thing that I saw. Another thing is the incarnation cross being a sleeping phoenix. Now, the sleeping phoenix is naturally going to be very sexual because sexuality is actually built into this incarnation cross. So when you see the 59, that's the gate of sexuality. So gate 59 is located right here in the sacral center. This is something that I'm always on the lookout for when it comes to people, because I find that a lot of people who are, when I study people who are pedophiles, serial killers, rapists, narcissists, cult leaders, a lot of them is very interesting. A lot of them have gate 59. A lot of them have a very high sexual energy, and this energy is designed for reproduction, but because there's so much sexual perversion on the planet, it plays out into many other areas of life, including violence, including other forms of abuse. And, I'm not going to get into that, but the sleeping phoenix cross, anybody that has this, whether they're 4/6 or they're another profile, sexuality is going to be a really big part of the way in which they move and operate within their lives. Like, there's always going to be this enhanced sexual energy coming off of them. And a lot of their focus is going to be on sex and sexual encounters. For those of you who remember the code behind Thanksgiving video, I spoke on the 2034 channel. This is the Thanksgiving energy. So this, during Thanksgiving, what makes Thanksgiving that busiest week, that busiest holiday week of the year, that is the cross of the sleeping phoenix. So this is just another variation of the cross of the sleeping phoenix. This cross takes place at a different time of the year, but it's still the same energy. So you have the 2034, you have that very busy, powerful, all over the place type of energy. And then you have it with sexuality. So you have this 4/6 profile. Within the first 28 years, they're going to be experimenting with their friends, with their network. They're going to be getting into all types of stuff. They're going to be very busy, all over the place. And this is a design that is prone to making, huge mistakes and skipping over things that need to be, paid attention to and looked at. And, this is just a design that is going to go through a lot of sexual encounters. And that's what this person experienced. It just so happened that at an early age, the first encounters were with somebody in the family. And going back to my notes. Her situation with this family member, these sexual incidences, was with the older cousin. And this was a cousin that she would see during the holidays. Now, at the time that things started, she was around 5 or 6 years old. She remembered having sexual stimulations by herself. Like she remembered feeling sexual energy within herself before she was ever touched by this cousin. This cousin was a teenager. So maybe, they were seven, maybe 8 years apart. And they would see each other during the holidays. And, to not get into detail, there would be, because a lot of you all know that when there are family gatherings during the holidays, the children tend to be away from the adults. You know, the adults are doing their thing, the children are running around doing their thing, and like all of the children are just kind of like grouped together. The babies, the, you know, the preteens, they're all kind of grouped together. If it's some teenagers, they may be around but kind of off, you know, in their own little world. You know how it goes. So there was just, it basically began. And in looking at this type of design and the type of power that's in this design, the type of energy that she has, there is definitely, you know, a lot of energy that is within her code that is attracting a lot. So when we look at, let's look at the tribal energies. These are energies that are specifically focused on the tribe and the family. So we have the 45 to the 21, that's a tribal energy. So everything tribal is all about family. It's about loyalty. It's about, you know, securing resources and whatever's needed for the family, for the network, for the tribe. So she has the gate of the queen. So the 45 is the tribal leader. So here she is, even though she's a little girl, she has this very powerful energy. And age means nothing. This blueprint, you know, is ageless. So she has a tribal leader energy. Then she has the 44 to the 26. That's a tribal channel. She has the 37 to the 40. This is all about community. So she has like the main essential tribal energies that are looking for connections. The 45 looking for the 21, the 37 looking for the 40, the 44 looking for the 26, the 59 to the 6. That's a tribal channel. So the sexuality is looking for the 6 to create the channel of mating. I spoke about the channel of mating. I don't think I went into detail, but I know I brought it up in a previous video. But the sexuality energy is saying, hey, I'm looking for that other half so I can reproduce. Then we have the 3254. That's a tribal channel. Then we have the 1949. That's a tribal channel. So she has a lot of tribal energy, a lot of family-oriented, network-oriented energy. And the 5027, this is the only tribal channel that she does not have anything out of. But other than that, she has something in every other tribal channel that's available. So she's naturally, you know, family oriented. She's naturally going to be very focused on her family, on, you know, in her tribe. And when it comes to how she's conditioning and how she's impacting everyone else around her, she's adding a lot more of that family glue energy to everybody else. And, you know, with all of the different people in her family that she was around on a regular basis, I'm pretty sure that somebody or multiple people had these other ends to these tribal channels. So that makes her a vessel that's loaded with all types of tribal energy, all types of family oriented energy. So on top of that, she's a triple split definition. So a triple split definition, this is someone who naturally needs multiple stimulations from multiple people, because a triple split definition, whenever I see someone that's a triple split, I tell them that if they haven't already, at some point they will consider having multiple partners, because a triple split definition person is not looking to be filled up by just one person. That's not how the triple split operates. The triple split needs different individuals to bridge the 3 splits that it has. So you have a 4-6 that's already the most promiscuous profile. On top of that, they're a triple split, so they're not even looking for just one individual to deal with. They're looking for multiple people that can give them this activation, that can just give them all types of stimulations. So triple split definition people, they actually have to go through people, even if they're a different profile, even if they're not a sleeping phoenix. A triple split has to go through different people. So a triple split will never feel completely comfortable with just one individual. They're going to feel this pressure to go out and engage with other people. And when you have a very high sexuality, that's going to enhance even more the promiscuity that's built into the design. And yeah, like it's going to be felt by everybody that's around you. So this is a very powerful and attractive energy that this individual has. And this particular cousin was pulled in. And it's a lot of other things that, you know, that really show how, you know, regardless of who she is, I'm sure there were multiple people on the planet born at the same time or around the same time as her that pretty much have this same setup. This setup it would be very difficult for this type of design to avoid an uncomfortable sexual encounter, whether it be with a family member or a friend. And that was another thing. Friends eventually came into play with, you know, kind of pushing their energy on her. So, you know, she's young, she's being set with a foundation with this cousin, you know, and it eventually became a routine, and it became normal to her, because it started within the first 7 years. And I've spoken about this. The first 7 years is where the foundation is laid for how you are going to operate for the rest of your life. So for her sexual engagement with another person to be with her cousin before the age of 7, that's in her foundation. And we spoke on how that affected her relationships. It affected the way in which she functioned on a psychological level with other people. And we were able to also see how it actually caused her promiscuity to be more spread out, because she remembers those first moments to where she was scared or she felt like something was wrong. She felt like, you know, she shouldn't be getting touched in certain ways. And being that young, it's easier to be groomed. Anybody can be groomed. But she recognized that she was being groomed by this older cousin. And she also found out that there were other situations with other family members that dealt with incest that were, you know, I guess supposed to be like family secrets, which happens a lot within families. Like people want to not talk about those things and take it to the grave. But, you know, stuff like that, you know, there's a higher universal energy that's going to force those type of things to come out. And that's what we're seeing now. So, the cousin, you know, had experienced some things, you know, when he was younger. And he was just kind of simply passing on what was done to him. And whatever was within her design caused him to see her as the little cousin that he wanted to engage with. And she only saw him during the holidays, but there were a couple of times to where in other parts of the year for like family vacation, she would see him. So it became like a holiday type thing, you know, like, but still it's like, you can see how it's built into the life. It's built into the foundation of this individual. And her being a 4/6, this is a profile that operates based on what they're taught in their foundational years. So for a 4/6, by the time a 4/6 gets around the age of like 15 or 16, whatever they've been taught is going to be very difficult for them to break out of that as they, you know, mature into adults and go deeper into their adulthood. Whereas other profiles that aren't dependent on the foundation that's given to them by their family and by their first teachers, which are mainly, you know, the parents, they can recognize things that happen in childhood and break out of those things more easily. But when you're dealing with a profile that has a 4 in it, whether it's a 1/4, a 2/4, a 4/1, or a 4/6, those profiles are very much fixed. They're a fixed type of profile. So for a 4/6, if they were taught something in their childhood by a parent, it's natural for a 4/6 to be in their 40s still repeating what their mother told them when they were 7. That's very natural for a 4/6 to do something like that, because that's the way that they operate. Whereas, for instance, I'm a 1/3. If my parents tell me something at age 7 and it doesn't make sense, even though I'm 7 years old, it doesn't make sense, I'm not repeating it. I'm actually like completely shattering whatever they told me that I know doesn't make any sense. And I'm figuring out what I need to figure out for myself. And I'm recognizing, look, I can't trust my parents. A 4/6 is different. A 4/6 will hold on to the word of their parents, no matter how truthful or dishonest it is. So that's just natural for the 4-6 to just pass on information that is not necessarily researched or checked to see if it's factual or not. So in understanding that, this type of foundational information, because that's how her body is taking it in as a 5-6-year-old. She's taking in this action and this encounter with her cousin, somebody that's in her network, someone that, you know, is a part of her family, someone that, you know, she sees as, okay, I'm supposed to trust you. She's taking in this information as this is right, even though her body, you know, did give those indications that something isn't right. As a 5-year-old, how far can you really go with that if you're designed to just take what is given to you and pass it on and not necessarily ask questions? So it's not going to be natural for a 4-6 at that age to ask questions about what they've been told or what has happened to them. They're just going to say, okay, this is the foundation, I'm going to pass this on. So it took her a long time to recognize the level of damage that had taken place and face the psychological, emotional, and physical trauma, because it spread, you know, it spread into the other areas of her life as she got older. And she continued, you know, to feel a pull to this cousin because it's so deeply embedded. He's so deeply embedded in her foundation. So in just taking in, you know, all of that, you know, I hope it painted a picture of how deep, you know, this topic, and how deep a person's genetic blueprint is when it comes to the different situations that we find ourselves in. Because like I say, you can always find whatever has happened to you, you can find it in the blueprint. Doesn't mean that it's going to be a pleasant discovery, but it's a lot of things that have happened to many of us that need to be lifted off of us. Like, we need to be relieved of situations that have hindered us. And incest is it's a serious situation that so many people have dealt with and have just buried. But something that toxic festers inside of your soul. It festers inside of your body because it's been there for so long. A lot of times it happened when people were children and now they're adults and they're trying to figure out why they don't have successful relationships. They're trying to figure out why they're emotionally unstable. They're just having so many problems. And incest is just one out of many situations that are highly toxic and affect us as individuals. So in closing, in her learning about her human design blueprint, this helped to give clarity on why those situations with her cousin took place and why she felt bound and attached to them for so many years and was scared to speak out. So, I just want to make sure that I covered everything. Yeah, just, just to recap, if you're someone who participates in the holidays, or if you don't, and you have children, regardless of the holidays, regardless of any of that, if you have children, allow your child to express themselves. Allow your child to speak how they feel about certain individuals, because just like her parents didn't know that she was getting, she was having sexual encounters with a family member, you could be that parent that is telling your child to, go over there and kiss your uncle, or go over there and, make sure you hug everybody, you pay attention to how your children, to their body language, like, when a child wants to engage with a person. And as we get older, we're taught this false behavior. We're taught to be polite. We're taught to not say what we feel. And children are the purest form of honesty until, it's beat out of them, or there is so much fear instilled out into them to where they just agree to whatever, the parent is saying. And deep down inside, they're feeling like nobody cares, because they may not want to go to the babysitter's house because the babysitter may be touching them, or they may not want to go, hug their uncle because their uncle might have did something to them behind closed doors and nobody knew. So it's important to allow your child to have a voice, because to see so many cases to where people have held on to these stories for years. Adults are, it's taking people 40 plus years, 20, 30, 40 plus years to finally come forward and say, yeah, I was raped as a child, or I was molested by a family member as a child, or whatever. I mean, to me, there was a disconnection between the parent and the child, because there wasn't communication. There wasn't, the parent wasn't checking up on their child. The parent wasn't saying, hey, so how do you feel about your cousins? How do you feel about this person? Those type of questions aren't even thought about to be asked to a child, because children are supposed to know their place or stay in their place. They're not supposed to question authority and all of these other things that ultimately end up getting children abused by adults and older people, because they're told that they don't have a voice at an early age. So pay attention to your child's body language and talk to them. Ask them get into the habit of asking them, has anybody touched you in your vagina? Has anybody touched you on your penis? Has anybody put their lips on you? Have like, ask questions like that, because there may be children who, because it's not something that comes in with their conditioning and their programming, it may happen to them, but there's nothing in their programming to make them say, maybe I should tell somebody that happened. But then next thing you know, you're watching them playing with their toys or something, and they're doing something sexual with their toys, and you're trying to figure out where did they get that from. It could have actually been done to them by somebody that you know. So it's important to communicate with your children to find out, what's going on. I've seen children play, and it's so much going on. It's almost like you have to freeze frame, because children are doing so much, especially when it's a lot of them. They're running around. Next thing you know, one is on the floor. Next thing you know, one is jumping over here. And it's like, it's so many. I remember a particular experience when I lived in Atlanta, to where all the adults were separated from the children. The children were they were all over the place. And I felt very uncomfortable, because I'm watching the children. I'm like, is anybody seeing what these children are doing? And they're doing so much that everyone is just thinking that they're just playing. But I'm watching the children play, but like within like a split second, I catch a sexual act. And then boom, they're back to playing again. And it's like, wait a minute, what? And none of the adults are paying attention. And I'm like, okay, this is weird, because I'm like the only person that doesn't have children, but I'm seeing some real disturbing things right now. And this is the type of stuff that happens. I've seen children play on playgrounds, and how, it's so many quick things that are happening, to where it's like, did they just do that? And it's sexual stuff. It's like, I've always seen like little sexual acts that happen very quickly. I don't know if the children are conscious of it or not, but it's like, when I look at it energetically, it's so much stimulation. The stimulation is just, and our bodies are forms. They're forms that move. And just like as adults, we move unconsciously. We scratch our head unconsciously. We do things unconsciously all the time. Children are the purest form of that unconscious movement. So yes, I can see how, if you have a adult, whether it's a family member of yours, or just, a pedophile that's just out lurking or whatever, I can see how, if you have an adult that is looking for that primal sexual energy, I can see how the children is where it's at, because they have it. It's so potent. It's innocent, but because it's there, is this is a newborn baby. This woman is a newborn baby. She came out like this. Every blueprint comes out like this. So as soon as she came out as a newborn baby, this is what is beaming off of her: sexuality and more. So this is energy that is tameable. It can be groomed into what a pedophile, or an adult that is having sexual contact with a family member, a child family member. This is the grounds for grooming. And even in me studying pedophiles, there have been pedophiles who have spoke openly about how they go about grooming babies. 1-year-old, 6-month-old, starting that early, so that by the time that child is 6, 7, or in their teenage years, they're completely brainwashed in a full-blown sex slave. And specifically made for that pedophile. So yes, this has so many layers to it, and it could just keep going. But be aware. Just be aware. Pay attention to your children. Communicate with your children. If this video is sparking you to, just if this is something that you never really thought about, and you're saying, man, I need to like sit down with all of my children and like really have a family discussion and ask them, okay, when is the first Christmas or a holiday you remember with your family, with our family? Did anybody ever touch you? Did anybody ever make you feel uncomfortable? What is your earliest memory, if you can recall? Like, you may have to do that. You may have to ask your children questions to trigger memories, because that we know as adults that it's a lot of things that we forget over time. A lot of things that we stuff it so far in our consciousness that we forget about it until somebody says something, asks us a question, or we may even see an object, or, watch a television show, an old television show, and all of a sudden we're triggered to remember something that, we forgot even happened, but it just came to the surface from that triggering. So your questions to your children, can help them to bring forward things. And there's been a lot of people who have been sexually abused who it's like they know that they've been abused, but they can't even really remember the details, because it's just like, block it out. And I've even worked with people to where we weren't even focusing on sexual abuse or anything like that. But in just me seeing the activations and me just going off my intuition and going off of what I see in the chart, I say something that may deal with sexuality or something that is common for a certain profile. And next thing I know, the person is breaking down crying because I've just triggered them to remember something that they had forgot, or that they stuffed so far back in their mind, but it needed to come out. They needed to get that out of them, because it was like a tumor just sitting there that, they didn't know how to reach it. They didn't know what to do with it. But in understanding that, okay, well, you have a certain energy, or you have a certain activation that would draw in this, and that could, tie into sexual abuse or domestic violence or whatever. And then boom, it's like it comes to the surface, they can release it. So again, these things aren't comfortable to talk about, but this is a great tool. Human design is a great tool to get to the bottom of anything that has been traumatizing, or, just anything that has caused you problems, that has caused you to feel stuck, that has caused anything that makes you feel as if your energy is not flowing the way that it should be. If you feel trapped within yourself, if you feel, tight and rigid, like it could be that you need to bring awareness about yourself to your conscious mind, so that you can let things go. You can recognize where things are placed based on these activations and these energies, and say, okay, It didn't feel good, but I don't have to call it bad anymore. I can see that, okay, this situation happened because of this. I can release it. And, you know, everyone's different, so it may not be that easy to do, but this is a start. This is definitely a start for people who just want to get stuff off of them, because it's happening. Like we can see on a worldwide scale, things are just coming out. Things are like being released all over the place. And it's necessary, because if you hold on to too much toxicity, we already know what that does. We have plenty of diseases and crazy situations to show what happens when you hold on to too much toxicity. So I am going to end it here. Thank you all for tuning in and watching. I hope that this video was helpful. I don't know what's next, but until next time, free your mind to shine.